Captain Jake Morrison looked out at the stars from the bridge of his ship, New Horizons. He had been exploring space for 20 years, but today felt different. His crew had found something big floating in the dark void between star systems. Something that should not exist. The thing was huge. Jake estimated it was 2 kilometers long, maybe more. It looked like a ship, but not like any ship he had ever seen. The hull was smooth and curved, almost like it was made of liquid metal. That had been frozen in time. There were no visible engines, no weapons, no windows. Just smooth metal that seemed to glow faintly in the starlight. "Captain, I'm getting some strange readings," said Dr. Lisa Harper. She was the ship's expert on alien technology. Her scanner kept beeping as she pointed it at the mysterious vessel. "This thing is old, really old. My equipment says it's been here for about 50,000 years. Jake whistled softly. 50,000 years was longer than humans had been building cities. Any signs of life? Nothing. No power, no heat, no radio signals. It's completely dead." Lisa frowned at her readings. "But the materials it's made from, they shouldn't be possible. My scanner can't even identify what they are." Jake called his other crew members to the bridge. Danny Walsh was his chief engineer, a man who could fix anything. Kate Phillips was his security officer, tough and smart. Together, they were a good team. "We're going aboard," Jake decided. "Danny, get the tools. Kate, bring weapons just in case. Lisa, pack your equipment. We're going to find out what this thing is." The 4 of them took a small shuttle to the alien ship. As they got closer, Jake could see that it was even more impressive than he had thought. The hull had patterns carved into it that seemed to shift and move when he wasn't looking directly at them. It was beautiful and scary at the same time. They found what looked like a door. Lisa ran her scanner over it, but found no obvious way to open it. Jake was about to suggest they cut through when the door simply slid open with a soft hiss. "That's not normal," Kate said, her hand moving to her weapon. "Nothing about this is normal," Jake replied. He took a deep breath and stepped inside. Interior was even stranger than the outside. The corridors were huge, built for beings much taller than humans. The walls seemed to glow with their own light, though Jake couldn't see any actual light sources. Everything was clean and perfect, as if the ship had been built yesterday instead of thousands of years ago. They walked through hallways that seemed to go on forever. Lisa took pictures and measurements of everything. Danny tried to understand how the ship's systems worked, but found no wires, no computers, nothing that made sense to him. "This is impossible," Danny muttered as he examined the wall. "How does anything work without power cables or control systems?" They found rooms that might have been living quarters, though the beds were 3 meters long. There were other rooms with purposes they couldn't guess. Some had strange equipment that looked like art sculptures. Others were completely empty, except for symbols carved into the walls. After 2 hours of exploring, they found the bridge. It was a circular room with a high ceiling that seemed to disappear into darkness above. The walls were covered with what looked like control panels, but they were all dark and silent. In the center of the bridge was a chair. It was made of what looked like crystal, but it was warm to the touch and seemed to pulse with a faint inner light. The chair was clearly meant for someone much taller than a human, but it was the most beautiful thing Jake had ever seen. "This must be where the pilot sat," Lisa said. She was taking pictures from every angle. "Look at all these controls around it. This whole ship was probably run from this one chair." Jake walked around the chair, studying it. As he got closer, he started to hear something. It was very faint, like a whisper or a distant song. He looked at the others, but they didn't seem to notice anything. "Do you hear that?" he asked. "Hear what?" Kate replied. The sound got stronger as Jake moved closer to the chair. It wasn't threatening. If anything, it sounded welcoming, like the ship was greeting him. "Captain, we should be careful," Danny warned. "We don't know what any of this stuff does." Jake knew Danny was right. Every rule of space exploration said they should study the ship from a distance first. They should bring in experts and analyze everything before touching anything. But the sound was getting stronger, and it seemed to be calling to him. "I'm just going to take a closer look," Jake said. He reached out and touched the arm of the chair. The moment his fingers made contact with the crystal surface, everything changed. The chair began to glow brighter. The control panels around the bridge flickered to life. Throughout the ship, systems that had been sleeping for thousands of years began to wake up. Jake felt something touch his mind. Not roughly, but gently. Like a friend reaching out to shake hands. He wasn't afraid. Instead, he felt curious and excited. Whatever was in the ship, it had been waiting for him. "Captain," Lisa shouted, "the whole ship is lighting up. Power readings are off the charts." Jake looked at his crew, then back at the chair. The humming in his head was getting stronger, and he could almost understand what it was trying to tell him. This ship had been waiting for someone like him. Someone who would listen instead of just take. Without thinking about it, Jake sat down in the pilot's chair. The moment he did, the ship came fully alive around them. Lights raced along the walls. Displays showed star maps of places no human had ever seen. And deep in the ship's core, engines that had been silent for millennia began to hum with power. Jake felt the ship's consciousness touch his mind fully now. It was ancient and wise and incredibly lonely. It had been waiting for so long for someone to sit in this chair, someone who could be its partner instead of its master. The ship's name came to him without words, Starweaver, and it had finally found the pilot it had been searching for across the centuries. The ship called Starweaver was no longer silent. Jake Morrison sat in the crystal chair and felt the massive vessel come alive around him. It was like watching a sleeping giant wake up after a very long dream. Lights flowed along the walls in patterns that reminded Jake of water or wind. The dark control panels now glowed with symbols he had never seen before, but somehow he understood what they meant. The ship was showing him star maps, power levels, and system status reports all at once. "Jake," Lisa Harper called out, her voice filled with wonder and worry. "Your eyes are glowing." Jake looked at his reflection in one of the shiny panels. His eyes had a soft golden light in them, like tiny stars. But he didn't feel different. If anything, he felt more like himself than he ever had before. Through the mental link with the ship, Jake began to understand what had happened. The Starweaver had been built by a race called the Architects. They had been so advanced that they had given up their physical bodies long ago and became beings of pure energy and thought. Before they transcended, the Architects had built ships like this one as gifts for younger races. But these ships were not just tools or weapons, they were partners. The ships would only wake up when they found someone with the right kind of mind and heart. Jake learned that hundreds of different alien species had found the Starweaver over the past 50,000 years. Many had been smart and powerful. Some had been peaceful, others warlike. But none of them had possessed what the Architects called the spark. None of them had been able to wake the ship. Until now. "What's happening to you?" Kate Phillips asked. She had her weapon ready, but Jake could tell she was more worried than scared. "I'm fine," Jake said, and he meant it. Better than fine. The ship is. It's talking to me. Not with words, but with thoughts and feelings. It's been waiting for someone like me. Someone like you, how? Danny Walsh asked. He was studying the control panels with fascination. What makes humans special? Jake thought about the question. Through his link with the Starweaver, He could sense what the ship had learned about his species. Humans were not the strongest race in the galaxy. They were not the smartest or the most advanced. But they had something that the ship found interesting. "We're curious," Jake said finally. "We explore not because we have to, but because we want to. We help others not because it benefits us, but because it's the right thing to do." The ship has been looking for a species that explores and helps and grows, not one that just conquers and takes. The Starweaver shared more of its memories with Jake. He saw flashes of the architects as they had been long ago. They had been explorers too, traveling between the stars and helping younger races learn and grow. When they evolved beyond the need for physical bodies, they had wanted to leave something behind to continue their work. "The ship wants to help us," Jake explained to his crew. "It's not just a machine. It's alive in a way. It has intelligence and emotions and goals. It wants to explore the galaxy and help people, just like its creators did." Lisa was scanning Jake with her equipment. "His brain activity is off the charts," she reported. "But it doesn't look dangerous. It looks like he's processing information at an incredible rate." Jake nodded. The ship was sharing its knowledge with him, but slowly so his human mind could handle it. He was learning about technologies that could revolutionize human space travel. He saw star maps showing routes to distant galaxies. He understood scientific principles that human researchers had been trying to figure out for decades. But the most important thing the ship shared was its purpose. The Starweaver had been designed to find races that were ready to grow beyond their current limitations. It would help them explore new worlds, make new discoveries, and become better versions of themselves. "We need to contact Earth," Jake said. "They need to know about this." Danny was already working on the communication system. "Jake, this is incredible. The ship's computers are interfacing with our systems. It's downloading star charts and technical data. Our scientists are going to go crazy when they see this." Kate was still nervous. What if this is a trap? What if the ship is trying to control Jake? Jake understood her concern. "It's not control," he said. "It's partnership. The ship can't make me do anything I don't want to do. It can only suggest and advise. The final decisions are always mine." To prove his point, Jake asked the ship to dim the lights, and they did. Then he asked it to show them the engine room, and a new display appeared with a map of the ship's internal structure. The ship was responding to his requests, not controlling his actions. "This is the discovery of the century," Lisa said, still taking pictures and measurements. "A functional alien ship with technology thousands of years ahead of ours. The governments of Earth are going to want to study every inch of this vessel." Jake felt a moment of worry through his link with the ship. The Starweaver had experience with governments and military organizations. Not all of them had good intentions. Some wanted to use advanced technology for war rather than exploration. "We'll have to be careful," Jake said. "The ship has seen what happens when people try to use its technology for the wrong reasons. It won't let itself be turned into a weapon." Danny looked up from his work. "The ship is incredible, but it's also vulnerable. If someone wanted to take it apart and study it, they could probably find a way. The only thing protecting it is Jake's connection to it." Jake nodded. He was beginning to understand the responsibility that came with being the ship's pilot. He wasn't just exploring a new discovery. He was protecting something precious and ancient. The Starweaver represented the hopes and dreams of the architects, a race that had wanted to help younger species grow and thrive. "We'll go back to Earth," Jake decided. "But we'll be careful about who we trust. The ship has been waiting 50,000 years for the right partner. We're not going to let anyone ruin that." The Starweaver pulsed with approval. Jake could feel its satisfaction and happiness. After such a long time alone, it finally had someone to share its journey with. Someone who understood its purpose and wanted to help fulfill it. As they prepared to leave the ancient ship and return to the new horizons, Jake felt a sense of destiny. His life had just changed in ways he couldn't fully understand yet. He was no longer just a space explorer. He was the pilot of the most advanced ship in the galaxy, and he had a responsibility to use that power wisely. The Starweaver would stay with him, following the new horizons back to human space. Jake could feel its excitement about meeting more humans and learning about their culture. The ship was ready to begin its new mission after waiting so long for the right moment. But Jake also sensed something else through their mental link. The ship was cautious about the future. It had learned from experience that not all beings were ready for the gift it offered. Some would want to possess it rather than partner with it. Some would see it as a tool for power rather than a vehicle. For growth. Jake knew that the real test was just beginning. Discovering the ship had been the easy part. Now he had to convince his own species that they were ready for what the Starweaver had to offer. News of the Starweaver spread through human space like wildfire. Within days, every government, military organization, and research institution wanted to claim the ancient ship. Jake Morrison found himself at the center of a political storm that threatened to tear apart everything he had discovered. Admiral Frank Collins arrived first with a battle fleet from the Terran Federation. He was a stern man with gray hair and cold eyes, who saw the Starweaver as a weapon that could give humans dominance over the galaxy. Behind him came Commander Amy Rodriguez from the Colonial Alliance, bringing her own ships and scientists. Captain Morrison, Admiral Collins said during their first meeting aboard the New Horizons, "You have made the most important discovery in human history. This ship must be placed under proper military authority immediately." Jake felt the Starweavers' unease through their mental link. The ship had experienced this before with other species. Fear and greed were common reactions to its advanced technology. "With respect, Admiral, the ship doesn't work that way," Jake replied. "It only responds to me. When I'm not in the pilot's chair, it goes back to being completely inactive." This was true. Every attempt to access the ship's systems without Jake present had failed. The Starweaver would only share its knowledge and power with its chosen pilot, Commander. Rodriguez was more diplomatic than Collins, but Jake could see she had the same basic goal. "Captain, surely you understand that this technology belongs to all humanity, not just one person. We need to study it, understand it, and make sure it's used for the benefit of everyone." Jake wanted to agree with her. He had no desire to keep the ship's wonders to himself. But through his link with the Starweaver, he understood the danger. The ship had seen civilizations destroy themselves by trying to use its technology for war and conquest. Dr. Lisa Harper supported Jake's position. She had spent weeks studying the ship and understood its true nature better than anyone else. "The Starweaver isn't just a machine," she explained to the assembled officials. "It's a living entity with its own consciousness and values. You can't just take it apart and study it like a broken engine." For 2 weeks, Jake found himself trapped in endless meetings and negotiations. Everyone wanted to know how the ship worked, what its capabilities were, and how they could access its technology. But Jake knew that the real test was still coming. The test came in the form of a distress signal from the outer rim of human space. The colony ship Endeavour had suffered a catastrophic engine failure while carrying 2,000 settlers to a new world. They were stranded in the Maelstrom Nebula, a region of space where normal ships couldn't operate safely. "We need to mount a rescue mission immediately," Admiral Collins declared, "but it will take our fastest ships 3 weeks to reach them." Through normal space lanes, Jake studied the star charts. The Endeavour's crew had maybe 10 days before their life support systems failed completely. Conventional rescue was impossible. "The Starweaver can do it," Jake said. "It can navigate through the nebula and reach them in time." Collins shook his head. Absolutely not. That ship is too valuable to risk on a rescue mission. We'll find another way. But Jake had already made his decision. Through his link with the Starweaver, he could feel the ship's eagerness to help. This was exactly what it had been designed for, to aid those in need and push the boundaries of what was possible. I'm going, Jake announced. With or without permission. Commander Rodriguez looked conflicted. Captain, you're talking about disobeying direct orders from both major human governments. I'm talking about saving 2,000 lives, Jake replied. The ship wants to help them. That's what it was built for. Lisa, Danny, and Kate stood with Jake. They had all felt the ship's benevolent nature and understood its true purpose. We're going with you, Lisa said firmly. Admiral Collins was furious. If you take that ship without authorization, you'll be branded a traitor to humanity. Jake felt the Starweaver's sadness through their mental link. The ship had hoped that humans would be different, that they would put helping others above political concerns. But the pattern was familiar. Fear and the desire to control always seemed to win out over compassion and cooperation. Then I'll be a traitor, Jake said. But I won't let innocent people die while we argue about politics. The journey to the Endeavor was like nothing Jake had ever experienced. The Starweaver moved through the chaotic energies of the Maelstrom Nebula as if it were sailing through calm water. Where other ships would have been torn apart by gravitational anomalies and energy storms, the ancient vessel used its advanced technology to navigate safely. Through his link with the ship, Jake felt its joy at being able to fulfill its purpose. Again, for 50,000 years, it had waited for someone who would use its power to help others rather than destroy them. Now it was finally doing what it had been designed to do. They reached the Endeavor with only hours to spare. The colony ship was badly damaged, its engines dead, and its life support systems failing. Jake could see the fear in the faces of the crew as they watched the massive alien vessel approach. This is Captain Morrison of the Starweaver, Jake broadcast. To the colony ship, we're here to help. The Starweaver's advanced medical systems quickly stabilized the most critically injured colonists. Its engineering systems repaired the Endeavor's life support and provided enough power to keep the ship running. In a matter of hours, the crisis was over. But Jake knew the real crisis was just beginning. By disobeying orders to save the colonists, he had turned the Starweaver into a political problem that couldn't be ignored. Every government in human space would now see the ship as a threat to their authority. As they escorted the Endeavor back to safe space, Jake felt the ship's conflicted emotions. It was happy to have helped save lives, but it was also worried about the future. The Starweaver had seen this pattern before with other species. Fear and politics would eventually override compassion and wisdom. What happens now? Lisa asked. As they watched the rescued colonists celebrating their survival. Jake looked out at the stars and felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He had proven that the Starweaver could be a force for good in the galaxy. But he had also proven that he couldn't be controlled by conventional authority. Now we find out if humanity is ready for what the ship has to offer, Jake said. Or if we're just another species that will let fear destroy a gift from the stars. The Starweaver pulsed with uncertainty through their mental link. It had been disappointed before by races that seemed promising, but ultimately chose conflict over cooperation. Jake hoped that humanity would be different, but he was beginning to have doubts. As they headed back toward the heart of human space, Jake knew that the real test was still ahead of them. The rescue mission had been successful, but it had also set up a confrontation that would determine the fate of both humanity and the ancient ship that had chosen to trust them. The Starweaver had stayed silent for 50,000 years, waiting for the right species to claim it. Now it would discover whether humanity was truly ready for the responsibilities that came with its advanced technology and ancient wisdom. The successful rescue of the Endeavour changed everything. News of Jake Morrison's heroic mission spread across human space, but not everyone saw it as heroic. In government buildings and military headquarters, officials saw something far more dangerous, a single, human-commanding technology that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. Admiral Frank Collins was furious when Jake returned with the Starweaver. "You disobeyed direct orders and stole classified alien technology," he accused during a heated meeting aboard Titan Station, humanity's largest space facility. Jake stood his ground. "I saved 2,000 lives. The ship's technology made it possible to do what conventional rescue ships couldn't." "That's exactly the problem," Collins replied. "You have power that no single person should possess. What happens when you decide our government isn't worth following? What happens when you decide to use that ship against other humans?" Jake felt the Starweaver's sadness through their mental link. The ship had hoped that humans would be different from the other species it had encountered. But the pattern was always the same. Fear of change led to attempts to control or destroy what they didn't understand. Commander Amy Rodriguez was present at the meeting, representing the Colonial Alliance. She was more diplomatic than Collins, but Jake could see the same concerns in her eyes. "Captain Morrison, surely you understand that this situation can't continue. The ship's technology belongs to all humanity, not just one person." "The ship doesn't belong to anyone," Jake replied. "It's a conscious being that makes its own choices. It chose to partner with me, and it chose to help those colonists. You can't just take it apart and study it like a broken machine." Dr. Lisa Harper tried to support Jake's position. "The Starweaver is unlike anything we've ever encountered. It's not just advanced technology. It's a living entity with its own moral code. It was designed to help younger species grow and explore, not to be used as a weapon." But fear had already taken hold of the human leadership. For the first time in history, the Terran Federation and the Colonial Alliance formed a joint military force. Their goal was simple: bring the Starweaver under official government control or neutralize it as a threat. Jake found himself effectively under house arrest aboard Titan Station. The Starweaver was surrounded by a fleet of human warships there, weapons trained on the ancient vessel. The ship's advanced sensors could detect the hostile intent, and Jake felt its growing anxiety through their mental link. "They're scared," Jake told Lisa during one of their private conversations. "The ship has seen this before. When a species is faced with something they don't understand, they often choose to destroy it rather than learn from it." Lisa nodded grimly. "The politicians are calling emergency sessions. They're debating whether to declare you a traitor or a hero. But either way, they want control of the ship." Danny Walsh had been analyzing the Starweaver's technology with the ship's permission. "Jake, this vessel could revolutionize human space travel. The energy systems alone could power entire colonies. The medical technology could eliminate most diseases. But Collins and his people only see it as a potential weapon." Kate Phillips was monitoring the human fleet's communications. "They're planning something. I can't get details, but there's a lot of coded traffic between the ships." "Whatever. They're planning. It's going to happen soon." Jake felt the Starweaver's growing distress. The ship had been hoping to find a species that would embrace its gift of exploration and discovery. Instead, it found itself trapped by beings who wanted to possess and control it. Through their mental link, Jake experienced some of the ship's memories. He saw other species that had found Starweaver vessels over the millennia. Some had been peaceful explorers who had used the ship's technology to build better civilizations. Others had been warlike races that had tried to turn the ships into weapons of conquest. The ships had their own way of dealing with those who misused their gifts. If a species proved unworthy, the ship would simply leave, taking its technology and knowledge with it. Some ships had waited centuries for their chosen species to mature enough to handle the responsibility. What if we just left? Jake asked the ship through their mental link. We could explore the galaxy together, just the two of us and whoever wants to come along. The Starweaver's response was complex. It wanted to help humanity, but it also had to protect itself and its technology from being misused. If humans couldn't learn to cooperate and share, perhaps they weren't ready for what the ship had to offer. The confrontation came 3 days later. Admiral Collins appeared on the bridge of the Starweaver with his ultimatum. Captain Morrison, you have 24 hours to surrender control of this vessel to Federation authority. If you refuse, you will be branded a traitor and dealt with accordingly. Jake felt the ship's defensive systems activate automatically. Energy shields flared to life around the massive vessel, and Jake sensed the awesome power of weapons that could easily destroy the entire human fleet. The ship won't let itself be controlled, Jake said calmly. It's not a tool or a weapon. It's a partner. You can't just take it apart and study it. Collins was unmoved. Then you've made your choice. As of now, you are considered a hostile force. Jake felt the Starweaver's confusion and sadness. The ship had hoped that humans would be different. It had chosen Jake because it sensed humanity's potential for growth and cooperation. But now it was faced with the same fear and aggression it had encountered with other species. Commander Rodriguez had been quiet during the confrontation, but now she spoke up. Admiral, perhaps there's another way. Captain Morrison has shown good judgment in using the ship's technology. Maybe we should be working with him instead of against him. Collins glared at her. The decision has been made. We can't allow one person to control technology this powerful. It's too dangerous. Jake realized that the situation had reached a breaking point. The human leadership was so afraid of losing control that they were willing to destroy the greatest discovery in human history. Through his link with the Starweaver, he felt the ship preparing to make its own decision. The ship is considering leaving, Jake announced. It's done this before with other species. If humans can't learn to cooperate, it will find another race that can. The thought of losing the Starweaver's technology terrified the human officials. But their fear only made them more determined to control it. Jake could see the trap they were creating for themselves. Their desire to possess the ship was exactly what would drive it away. As the deadline approached, Jake felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He wasn't just fighting for his own freedom. He was fighting for humanity's future. The Starweaver represented a chance for his species to grow beyond their current limitations and explore the wonders of the galaxy. But first, they had to prove they were worthy of that chance. And time was running out. The Starweaver pulsed with uncertainty through their mental link. It had waited 50,000 years for the right species to claim it. Now it would discover whether humanity was truly ready for the gift it offered, or if they would join the long list of species that had failed the test. The final confrontation came exactly 24 hours after Admiral Collins had delivered his ultimatum. Jake Morrison sat in the crystal pilot's chair of the Starweaver, feeling the ship's anxiety through their mental link. Around them, human warships had powered up their weapons and were preparing to fire. "This is Admiral Collins to the Starweaver," came the voice over the communication system. "You have 60 seconds to surrender control of that vessel, or we will open fire." Jake felt the ship's defensive systems activate automatically. Energy shields that had protected the vessel for 50,000 years flared to life. Jake knew that the human weapons could not harm the ancient ship, but he also knew that the Starweaver could easily destroy the entire fleet if it chose to defend itself. "I won't let you turn this into a weapon," Jake said firmly. The ship was built to help people, not to hurt them. Through their mental link, Jake felt the Starweaver's deep sadness. The ship had hoped that humans would be different from the other species it had encountered over the millennia. But the pattern was always the same: fear and the desire to control led to conflict and destruction. Admiral Collins gave the order to fire. Dozens of human warships opened fire with their most powerful weapons. Energy beams and missiles struck the Starweaver's shields, creating brilliant flashes of light but causing no damage to the ancient vessel. Jake felt the ship's defensive systems calculating the most efficient way to destroy the attacking fleet. The Starweaver had weapons that could turn entire planets to dust, but it also had a moral code that prevented it from harming innocent beings. Instead of fighting back, the Starweaver did something unexpected. It opened a communication channel to every ship in the fleet and every major population center in human space. Jake found himself speaking not just to the military forces arrayed against him, but to all of humanity. "My name is Jake Morrison," he began, his voice carrying across the galaxy. "I'm the pilot of the ship you're trying to destroy. But I'm not its master. I'm its partner. And I want to tell you about the choice that lies before us." Jake shared everything he had learned from the Starweaver. He told them about the architects, the ancient race that had transcended physical existence, but left behind gifts for younger species. He explained how the ship had waited 50,000 years for a species that was ready to explore and grow rather than conquer and destroy. "The Starweaver has given us star charts showing pathways to distant galaxies," Jake continued. "It has shared technology that could solve our energy problems and cure our diseases. It has shown us wonders beyond our imagination. But it will only share these gifts with a species that is ready to use them wisely." Through the ship's advanced communication systems, Jake transmitted images of the things the Starweaver had shown him. People across human space saw distant nebulae where new stars were being born. They saw planets covered in crystal forests and oceans of liquid diamond. They saw civilizations that had learned to live in harmony with the universe. "But the ship won't be controlled or possessed," Jake warned. "It's not a tool or a weapon. It's a conscious being with its own values and goals. If we try to take it apart and study it, if we try to use it for war instead of exploration, it will simply leave. And we will have lost the greatest opportunity in human history." The response from across human space was immediate and overwhelming. On every human world, people gathered around their communication devices to hear Jake's words. They saw the images of cosmic wonders and felt the same sense of curiosity and excitement that had driven humanity to explore the stars in the first place. Commander Amy Rodriguez was the first to respond. "Captain Morrison, you're asking us to trust you with technology that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy." "I'm asking you to trust the ship," Jake replied. "The Starweaver has been judging species for 50,000 years. It chose humans not because we're the strongest or the smartest, but because we have the potential to grow beyond our current limitations." Jake felt the ship's approval through their mental link. The Starweaver had been waiting for this moment, for someone to speak for it and explain its true purpose to humanity. Across the human fleet, individual captains began to make their own choices. Commander Rodriguez ordered her ships to power down their weapons. "I've read the reports," she announced. "This ship has done nothing but help people. I won't be part of destroying it." Other captains followed her lead. One by one, the warships surrounding the Starweaver stopped their attack. Their crews had heard Jake's words and seen the images of cosmic wonders. They understood that they were being offered a chance to be part of something greater than themselves. Admiral Collins found himself increasingly isolated. His own officers were questioning his orders. The crews of his ships were refusing to fire on the Starweaver. Across human space, people were demanding that their governments embrace the opportunity rather than destroy it. "This is mutiny," Collins declared. "You're all betraying your duty to humanity." "No," Commander Rodriguez replied. "We're embracing our duty to humanity, the duty to explore and grow and become better than we are." Jake felt the Star Weaver's joy through their mental link. The ship had finally found what it had been looking for. A species that could choose cooperation over conflict, growth over stagnation, wonder over fear. In the days that followed, humanity established new agreements for working with the Star Weaver. Jake remained as the ship's pilot, but he was no longer alone. Volunteers from every human world applied to join the crew. Scientists, engineers, doctors, and explorers all wanted to be part of the great adventure that lay ahead. The ship shared its knowledge freely with those who approached it with respect and curiosity. Human technology advanced by centuries in a matter of months. New engines allowed ships to travel between star systems in days instead of years. Medical advances eliminated diseases that had plagued humanity for generations. Energy systems provided clean, unlimited power for growing colonies. But the most important gift the Star Weaver provided was perspective. Through its ancient wisdom, humans began to see themselves as part of a larger cosmic community. The ship showed them that intelligence and consciousness came in many forms throughout the galaxy, and that cooperation was always more powerful than conflict. Dr. Lisa Harper became the ship's chief science officer, documenting the technologies and knowledge the Star Weaver shared. Danny Walsh worked with the ship's engineering systems to understand how its impossible technologies functioned. Kate Phillips helped train the new crew members who joined them from across human space. Admiral Collins was quietly reassigned to a desk job on Earth. His fear-based approach had been rejected by his own people, who chose to embrace the future rather than fight it. Commander Rodriguez became the official liaison between the Star Weaver and human governments, ensuring that the ship's gifts were shared fairly among all colonies and worlds. Stood on the bridge of the Star Weaver 6 months after their first meeting, looking out at the stars through the ship's advanced viewing systems. They were traveling to the Andromeda Galaxy, following star charts that the architects had left behind. The journey would take them to worlds no human had ever imagined. "Are you ready for this?" Lisa asked, joining him at the viewing port. Jake felt the ship's excitement through their mental link. The Star Weaver was finally fulfilling its purpose again, exploring the galaxy with partners who understood its mission. "I think we all are," he replied. The ship had stayed silent for 50,000 years, waiting for the right species to claim it. It had tested hundreds of races and found most of them wanting. Some had been too aggressive, others too passive. Some had been too focused on power, others too afraid of responsibility. But humans had proven different. They had chosen growth over fear, cooperation over control, wonder over suspicion. They had proven worthy of the gift the architects had left behind. As the Star Weaver jumped faster than light speed, carrying its human crew toward adventures among distant stars, Jake felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Humanity had passed the test. They had shown that they were ready to take their place among the galaxy's explorers and builders. The ship sang with joy as it traveled through the cosmic void, its long silence finally broken by the voices of those who had proven themselves worthy of the stars. The future stretched ahead of them, full of possibilities and wonders waiting to be discovered. Jake smiled and settled back into the pilot's chair. The real adventure was just beginning.